Good afternoon, it's Pastor Jerry, and like to have fun here at the gardens. I'll take my hat off, and because this is kind of like a sanctuary for me. It is the 5th of September, and it's been 95 degrees here, so it's pretty warm. And just want to say a few things about tomatoes. We're still getting tomatoes here. I picked probably 30 pounds today. And we usually tell you all the good stuff, most gardeners do, but also want to tell you some of the not so good stuff. I'll break off a dead leaf here. This is due to, as you can tell, it's not doing very well, tobacco hornworms and tomato hornworms. We try to respect all things, as you know, in raised gardens, pastor raised gardens, raised ministry gardens, the teaching gardens here. We don't use any chemical herbicides, any chemical pesticides, no chemical fertilizers. If you want to press the science really far, everything's made out of chemicals. You and I are. We're said to be, I don't know, 90% water. I do know for a fact that tomatoes are 95% water. I was listening to a documentary today and heard that I think elephants are 80% water. Regardless of that, everything is made up of chemicals. It's the way God made it. But we don't use the commercial fertilizers, the phosphates, all the mined and commercialized things that have been formulated and that are really taking a terrible toll on our environment. So not using those, I do use biologicals. I use neem oil. I use biological insects like ladybugs and lacewings and praying mantises, those type of things, to prey on the, those are called beneficial insects that prey on the bad insects. Some of the bad ones are tomato hornworms and tobacco hornworms. They look the same. One comes from the hawk moth, another comes from the sphinx moth, and they can tend to be about the size of a cigar. I've had some out here that were 6.5 inches long. They're probably about 3/4 to an inch in diameter. They're camouflaged, they're green, they look like a wilted tomato leaf sometimes. They're hard to detect, and you can detect them usually by their manure. If it's on the ground or beneath the plants, it'll look like a dark green pellet. It's called frass. And I've had a tomato hornworm essentially eat half a tomato plant overnight at times, about a 5-foot plant, and they decimate the tomatoes. And so neem oil will work on them. It'll make them produce a hormone that makes them feel like they can't eat or are full, and they'll die that way. But the best way is to have some of your beneficial insects when they're in the egg stage. A lot of times those eggs and the eggs of aphids can be washed off of leaves with just a detergent, dish detergent dissolved in water. That's good. But it's very disappointing when you come out and you may have, I've had some tomatoes that were a pound and 1.75 pounds. One was 2 pounds, and they'll have a hole where he's eaten a hole in it, and it just doesn't make it palatable to a lot of folks. I still use them. I'll take them home. If they're ripened, I'll cut the bad part away. If they're not ripened, we'll let them ripen, and they're fine. My mentor, Mr. Mike Price, who was a U.S. Department of Agriculture fruit and vegetable inspector for Central America, he taught me that one of the secrets of having a organic garden that doesn't use pesticides and herbicides and chemical fertilizers is you plant 4 times what you need. And he had a little saying, it helps me remember, you plant one for me, one for thee, one for the bugs, and one for the birds. So we're allowing the bugs to get their share, I guess. The birds have pretty much left us alone. Thank you to them. We also, as a part of one of the permaculture principles, and if you're not sure about permaculture, we'll have a whole library on that on our website at pastorraise.com eventually, and at raiseministries.com. But we plant food forests away from the gardens that we want. We'll plant certain plants that attract the deer and the vermin and the bugs so that they can have their feast and leave the vegetables that we grow to give away to soup kitchens and to the underemployed and unemployed. So there are methods by which you can try to minimize the damage that bugs and vermin do to your crops. In permaculture, since I alluded to that, you can look it up. It's 2 words. It's a manufactured word, if you will, for permanent agriculture. For me specifically, it would be permanent horticulture. Horticulture cares about every plant, whereas field agriculture, you can get a much lower yield, and because of the economy of scale, farmers are pleased with perhaps 50, 60, 70% yield. Here at Raised Ministries, we have much higher yield than that, and but we have more intensive gardening. All my gardens are 4 feet wide, they're 48 feet long, and this year so far we have harvested, I had to have a major surgery so I didn't get to plant but 3.5 of the 7 gardens, 7 being the perfect number in Scripture, the number of completeness. Planted 3.5, and since May the 16th, that planting we've harvested 2,092.5, that's on the card behind the camera, pounds of vegetables that we've given away. The hornworms have probably gotten an additional 100 pounds or so of tomatoes. I don't weigh the amount of waste. Maybe I should, but we just weigh the amount that we give away to the folk in need and in our area, widows and older folk, and the children's home, and some feeding centers. We want to say a shout out to Feed Kannapolis Hunger, as they do a great job. They were gleaning today and giving away corn, and we give some to them, not as much as we'd like, not as much as we will in time. But once again, this is Pastor Jerry. By the tomato plants, I'm going to film some tricks of the trade about when to take up your tomatoes. We're still having a lot of tomatoes, don't have that many plants. In garden number 1, we planted a variety just for a novelty. We planted Belgian pinks and Romas and Mr. Stripies and a yellow Jubilee Celebrity tomato, and of course Cherokee Purple heirloom tomatoes, which are my favorite. The only fertilizer we do use, you may hear them in the background, we do have chickens here, and raised them all from either chicks or we've incubated about a dozen, and we'll do more of that going forward. But that's the main fertilizer that we use here is rabbit manure and chicken manure. But with chicken manure, always remember, it is so hot in nitrogen, you either need to blend it with some other very mild organic fertilizer like cow manure or rabbit manure, or compost it, because as one of my horticulture teachers taught me at NC State University, Dr. Helen Krause, I'll give another shout out, God bless her. She said you can kill a plant quicker with fertilizer than you can with herbicide if you're not careful. And I found that to be true. I'm a little reticent to take folks just at their word sometimes, maybe a little bit skeptical, but I also like to prove it true. And believe you me, I proved that one true. So we are very careful with our chicken manure. Well, as you can see, it's pretty hot out here. I'm gonna go get some water, and hope that you have a wonderful evening. This is Pastor Jerry with Raised Ministries, and we ask you to say a prayer for us and pray for the ministries that we have in North Carolina and beyond. God bless you. Say a prayer for Raised Ministries. Goodbye and God bless.